I'm in love with this one. Right, Susie? So this one's an extra large. Extra large. It says your marriage to Cody was 1990 to 2014. You only spawned one misfit? Oh. Excuse my French, everybody. You don't call my child anything like that. Okay.
Hey you guys, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. You know, it's been a hot minute since we've talked about the sister wives, and I have missed 2 back-to-back week recaps, which I promise on Monday there will be a brand new recap for Sunday night's episode. We missed quite a bit, but I don't really feel like rehashing it now because I'm like way behind at this point. So I did want to talk with you about something that happened on Facebook yesterday with Meri Brown, and also just sort of dissect one specific scene from last week's episode with Meri and Janelle. So Meri Brown, if you are not familiar, she has her LuLaRoe business that she runs, and she consistently does live streams on Facebook where she sells the clothes that she owns, you know, for her LLR company. And yesterday, and frequently during the season, there's been a lot of trolling by people. It really started when the LLR documentary came out called Lula Rich, and it hasn't really slowed down because obviously we know that Christine Brown has left Cody, and so there's been this really tight microscope on the Browns as a whole because people are, I don't know, starting to realize what a sham the family is after all of these years. I mean, people probably did know these things and they did know that they were part of this cult, but they also, I think, now realizing the totality of what Christine left, maybe opening their eyes a little bit. And because of that, people are being a lot more critical of the women that stay and more defensive towards Meri, Janelle, and Robin. So this is actually one time, and actually this is video in general. I'm actually on Meri's side here. I know. So yesterday during a live on her Facebook when she was selling shirts, one of her followers made a comment that really upset Meri, and it had to do with her daughter, Mariah. We already know that Mariah and Meri have had a very complicated relationship over the years, but it has improved very much over the last several years, and she and Mariah have gotten to a very good place. Now, I will tell you this as a mom. One thing you don't do is come for someone's kids. You don't call a child names to a parent. It's just never going to end well. Now, what we see from Meri is something I've never seen before, so I wanted to just share it with you. Check it out.
I'm in love with this one. Right, Susie? So this one's an extra large. Extra large. It says your marriage to Cody was 1990 to 2014. You only spawned one misfit? Oh. Excuse my French, everybody, but you don't call my child anything like that. Okay. There you go. Okay. Excuse my language. You don't do that to my kids. Oh. Excuse me while I have a temper tantrum. Oh. I'm trying to calm down. I'm growling because Don't you tell me to calm down, Kathy. Don't you tell me to calm down. I'm going to go. I'll talk to you guys later.
Okay, so Meri got really upset in this, and the person referred to Mariah as a misfit. So, there's already the blatant homophobia that's attributed with calling someone that's in the LGBTQ plus a misfit. So obviously this is going to prompt any parent of a child that is in this world to have a very visceral reaction. And Meri did not hold back. In fact, she told the person F you, and she also just literally kind of had to like take a deep breath, calm herself down, and she couldn't even do that. Like, she started growling and getting angry, and eventually she had to cut the stream short. So I was actually like, someone sent it to me, and I posted it on my Instagram, which, by the way, if you're not following me on Instagram, make sure that you do. My Instagram is @withoutacrystalball. And you guys, all I said was that Meri lost it on her Instagram or on her Facebook. And your guys' comments overwhelmingly were super supportive of Meri. And most of you were saying, like, don't come for my child. Let me just share a few of the comments from you guys. One person said, I would have flipped out too. I leave the kids out of this. They didn't choose to be born into this BS. Not to mention Meri struggles with fertility. I'm not a Meri stan, but I stand with her here, even though it was pretty awkward thing to watch. You know, the kids on the show did not ask to be on the show, and a lot of them have stepped away from the show, and it's, for several of them, they want more of a private life, and I think that's fair. I mean, none of these kids on reality TV asked to be on the show. And in fairness, Mariah and Audrey are not on the show very much, very, very infrequently. Another person said, it's a cruel world we live in that someone has the audacity to say that about someone's child. Whether it's a baby or an adult, it makes no difference. Obviously, calling someone a misfit, calling someone a name because you want to like take a jab at Meri, so uncool. Another person said, go get him, Meri. I'm so glad she stood up for her daughter. Way to go, Meri. Another person said she did not go off, defend her child. In fact, she did that with so much class. I'm with her hands in the air. And then another one said, I mean, I would have reacted the same, but not in front of thousands of viewers. And then finally someone said, I would lose my crap if someone said that about my kids also. Mariah ends up being an extremely easy target for a lot of people because the conservative followers that are watching Sister Wives, a lot of them are extremely homophobic. And so it's extremely easy for them to target Mariah and call her a name. Here's the thing. I'm not clear what this commenter was trying to do, whether or not they were trying to, I think Cody has in the past referred to his kids as misfits, and he has called his children names. So I don't know if this commentator was trying to come for them in the sense of like what Cody has said, but it is super low, in my opinion, to come for Meri, not only because of calling her a name, but she said you only had one, implying that she was only capable of having one child. Because Meri for years has spoken about her infertility and the fact that she was not able to have more than one child. In the polygamy world and in the AUB, a woman's sole role is to have as many children as possible for her husband. And so when you can't achieve that goal, for many women, they almost feel like a failure, something that Meri has talked about, where even in her book, she talks about how it was difficult when her sister wives would get pregnant and she was struggling through infertility and having miscarriages. That's not anything that anyone would wish upon anyone, whether they're in a cult or not. Literally coming for someone for their infertility struggles and then also for the one child that they have, then referring to that child as a misfit is just incredibly uncalled for. So I actually agree with Meri on this. Go off, Meri, go off. Now, also in the episode last week, Meri and Janelle had this really weird conversation where they went out to the property, and Meri and Janelle were going to have a conversation about something that Janelle had been talking about and concerned about with relation to this pond. So Janelle was talking about how she was concerned that if Meri's property was on the pond, that she would restrict access to the kids and to the family of the pond. And that because of that, she didn't know if Meri should have the property that owns the pond.
She didn't want us to do that. So Christine and I had to go out the back door and in the other back door. We had to always be going outside to each other's houses.
I slipped on those damn stairs so many times outside Christine's door. It was cold, it was wet.
So Meri then confronts Janelle while they're walking in the properties on Coyote Pass and asks Janelle why she feels this way and what that's about, because to Meri, for her point of view, it's an outside entity that she wouldn't actually care if anyone was at. So Janelle then brings up something that literally happened more than 20 years ago and talks about how when they lived in Lehigh, Meri did not allow the kids to walk through her apartment so that they could see each other, because Janelle lived on one side of the house, Meri lived upstairs, and then Christine lived in the basement with her kids. So they had Meri and Christine had like upstairs and downstairs apartments covering 2 separate sides of the home, and then Janelle had one side where she had just the upstairs and the downstairs total. And because of that, if the kids wanted to see each other, the only way they would have been able to see each other by going through the house is by going through Meri's home, which Meri felt like was a violation of her privacy.
I worked full time. There was a time that I worked 2 jobs. I just felt like that it wasn't inappropriate for me to have the respect of my personal space within my home when I wasn't even there. I guess.
Now, Janelle believed that it was like her using her control, but Meri said that it was for her, like, if I'm at work, I don't want someone going through my house because I don't know who's in my house when I'm gone.
Okay.
And like when I'm gone and I'm like, okay, so people are going through my house and what's happening, and I mean.
I don't know. Meri, I don't know. Like, it was a long time ago. The kids were little.
This house was never designed to be one house. These were 3 houses. This was 3 apartments in one home, all with separate entrances, all with locks separate. So they weren't living in a one house. They had individual houses. They might have done communal things together, but in all, they were living in 3 separate apartments.
Yeah, and I appreciate understanding that it might have been a privacy thing, or it might have been, but it always felt sort of like a control thing to me. Yeah.
So I just thought it was ironic because Janelle was like kind of complaining about Meri having to, like, because of Meri having that rule, she would have to go outside if she wanted to see Janelle, and she would slip on the stairs in the cold. I was actually on Team Meri again on this, because to me, if you have an apartment, you should have the right to having your own personal space. And if your home is your home, you should be able to say no to someone using your home as a hallway, which is really...
I just struggled with my living room, my living space being a hallway.
Which is really Meri's point of view, is like, I just didn't want my house being used as a hallway. Because if you allow the kids to go in and out, theoretically, her home could be disrupted all day long. So setting personal boundaries is not a bad thing. But Janelle, even when Meri would try to talk about it, seemed very dismissive of what Meri was saying. So in this case, I was again Team Meri.
I just worried that you'd get angry at one time, like we all do, and instead of like slamming the doors, when we all lived in one house, you just slammed the doors and so everybody knew you were angry. You'd somehow like...
Wow, Janelle.
So what's going on this season? They're still fighting about everything to do with the property. Isabel got her surgery and she was very upset with Cody for missing out on the surgery. We barely saw Robin at all this last episode, and Janelle went to North Carolina for Evie's surgery. So we haven't even gotten to the point where Christine and Cody have actually gotten to a falling out. So I'm hoping maybe soon we'll see that. Long story short, Meri Brown is... I'm on Team Meri lately. I don't know. Again, I don't like this cult, but when it comes to certain aspects, don't mess with somebody's kid and don't mess with somebody else's privacy. Like, everyone has a right to say no. Every single person has a right to have a boundary without someone else accusing them of using that boundary to control others. To me, that just, like, it felt like Janelle wanted Meri to take the blame for everything, and Janelle wanted to take no responsibility for, like, well, you should have just given me what I wanted, which actually kind of makes me wonder, like, how much Janelle's entitlement plays a role into some of their arguments. All right, you guys, tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Bye, guys.